So I guess it's good morning to some, good afternoon to others. We really appreciate the time you're setting aside for this. This information is really important, and it's going to be vital to the success of your VISTA project moving forward. So NeighborWorks is headed into our 9th year with the program. So we've been partners with the corporation for 9 years now, going strong. It's been a great partnership. Sarah and Tina over at the Ohio State office have been absolutely fantastic. And I just want to take a second to thank you, Sarah, for all the hard work and effort you put in to help us manage a fantastic program. Going in, all of you are on the call today because you have been awarded at least one VISTA slot going into the 2017-18 program year, and that's going to kick off this August. And you'll all be very busy this summer with recruitment. And so I just want to say going into this that there's going to be a lot of work and deadlines and information for you to absorb over the next several weeks, probably through July. And the feedback that I get during this time frame is that this is going to be the busiest it's ever going to be for you. And then really things should settle down a little bit once we head into August and your VISTA comes on board and you get into a routine. But the recruitment period can get a little crazy. There's a lot of information that's going to be coming at you. So my best advice is to start a file now. I'll be sending you several emails over the course of the summer, and I really encourage you to file those away so you can reference them later. You'll get a lot of information about protocol and procedures and deadlines and things to do and not to do, and Sarah's going to cover a good chunk of that today with you right now. So just know that as busy as it's going to get over the next few months, it will trail off. So just hang in. We're all in this together. The VISTA leader and myself are going to support you every step of the way. So as you have questions or concerns or need any assistance, we are always an email or a phone call away. So again, I just want to thank you all for making the time to be on this webinar. And I'll go ahead and hand it back to Sarah.
Excellent. Thank you, Debbie. My name is Sarah Brady, and I work with the Corporation for National and Community Service in the Ohio State office, and I have the great pleasure of working with the NeighborWorks America VISTA project pretty much ad hoc. Tina Dunphy, who is my supervisor, is the primary contact for the NeighborWorks VISTA project, and I do a lot of the training for the purposes of all of our VISTA projects in Ohio and with NeighborWorks America, and so I feel very lucky that I get to spend this time with you this afternoon. We'll get into what my role is in a little bit, but I want to take care of a few housekeeping items before I really go ahead and get started. The first housekeeping item, I've placed all of your phones on mute. And we're doing that because the call is being recorded. I began recording it right before Debbie began speaking. If you do object, you are welcome to hop off the line. For the purposes of the presentation today, Debbie Wise and I are both unmuted, so Debbie can jump in at any time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take questions throughout the presentation through chat. I'm going to do my best to pay attention to chat, and I'm going to ask that Debbie just watches chat as well, and if she sees important questions come in, that she'll go ahead and flag them and ask them. Otherwise, we will open the lines at the very end of the call. That's number one. Number two, the big piece that I need you to be aware of is what I'm about to give you, and this is going to be very overwhelming, is 5 hours of content that I typically do in person for Ohio supervisors. I'm going to try and get all of that into a 2-hour online presentation. So bear with me as we go through this whirlwind over the next 2 hours. I will try to get you as much of the information as humanly possible. I know we have some follow-up webinars that are going to be taking place in the next week or so related to recruitment and functions in our recruitment online platform, which is called eGrants or the My AmeriCorps portal. And so when I find things that I can push off till that call, I will likely do so. But otherwise, I'm going to be trying to get through a lot of content in a very short period of time. So my apologies for that. And I then want to also take a moment and welcome all of you to the VISTA program. I know many of you have been supervisors before, but many of you are brand new to the VISTA program, and we'll get a better lay of the land in just a few minutes. So with that being said, one last housekeeping item that I want to make sure we have is this is a required call for all supervisors. And so what we have been doing is we're taking attendance through the chat feature. So if you could go ahead and type in your name and your organization into the chat feature of Skype, we will then record that, and that will be counted as your attendance. There may be a couple of you who happen to be on phone only and are not in the presentation. In that case, we'll ask you to send an email to me at the end of the call. We'll give you my email address and my specific password for attendance purposes, and we'll add you to the list of attendees. And then finally, the last housekeeping item for you is we do have the PowerPoint presentation as an attachment in Skype. You should be able to go to the little computer screen at the bottom of your screen and click on that, and you should be able to find a downloadable version of the PowerPoint presentation for future reference. Debbie also has access to that and will be able to send it out to you for your viewing pleasure beyond this call. So what we anticipate getting through today is we're going to talk about recruitment for success, how to recruit your VISTA members. We'll talk about VISTA member training, supervisor and sub-site supervisor training, reporting and data collection, rules and regulations, and special VISTA initiatives. This is a small snapshot of what we're going to get through today. Again, I will be cruising through information because this is typically about 5 hours worth of content. I'm going to do my best to get through everything we have for you today so that you are set up for success as we move forward. So before we truly get started, I want to get an idea of who's on the call today. So I have a brief poll that I'm going to present for you all. It should show up on your screen. I'm just asking, what's your experience hosting VISTA members? Is this your first time? Have you done this once before, or have you done this several times before? Take a minute, fill out the poll, and let's see where we stand. All right, I see responses coming in. All right, and it looks like we have a fairly even split. Probably a few more folks have had members for 2 or more years, and then the other 2 factors. Some of you have hosted members once, and some of you have never hosted members before. You're pretty split between the remainder of the responses, but we're pretty close to 30% on each of these experience levels. This is helpful for me because then I know who I'm talking with, and I can better frame the conversation for you today. Now, with that being said, one of the biggest misconceptions is the presentation and the training that I do for VISTA supervisors is very geared towards everybody who hosts VISTA members across the board. So I don't want you to think that I've hosted members for 2 or more years, I'm well versed on VISTA, I don't really need to be engaged or have my full attention on this presentation. Well, we require everybody to go through this training every year, and that's because things change, and there are several things that we want to refresh you on. So I will make sure that I'm speaking to all audiences throughout the call. But we're going to start by talking specifically about the structure of the AmeriCorps VISTA program and give you a little bit of information about how the VISTA program functions, and then we'll move into the mission of VISTA and the overarching guide, what's the best word? The overarching vision of the VISTA program. So what I like to do and what I'm trying to be very cognizant of is all people who receive the VISTA resource, whether you're brand new or experienced, it's helpful to understand the whole structure of the VISTA program. So when you're getting emails from various different organizations or people who are associated with VISTA, you know exactly who you're speaking with or emailing with. And we want to make sure that you're well versed on who all the key players are through the VISTA in the VISTA world, so that you can best manage the VISTA resource and you can best help your VISTA members succeed once they come on board. So with that being said, what you should see on your screen right now is basically a visual of the VISTA program. And what you'll see here at the very top of the screen, we have the Corporation for National and Community Service. I would venture to say that a lot of you on this call even would hear that term and go, what is the Corporation for National and Community Service? Our agency as a whole is very unbranded, and we're trying to change that. But the Corporation for National and Community Service is the federal agency that oversees and manages all the national service programs related to Senior Corps and AmeriCorps, and through the rest of this year, the Social Innovation Fund. Unfortunately, with the 2017 federal budget, we did lose all of our funding for the Social Innovation Fund, so we're in the closeout phase of the Social Innovation Fund. Senior Corps and AmeriCorps VISTA have been flat funded, and so we are moving forward, and we have secured our funds through the remainder of this fiscal year, which we're very excited about. So the Corporation for National and Community Service is an executive branch agency, and so we're an independent agency, and we have a CEO who basically governs our agency and a board of directors. It's a little different than a lot of federal agencies, but that's partially because we are an independent agency. With every federal agency, there is a pretty significant structure, and a lot of people would say it's pretty bureaucratic, and I would say I can't disagree. But the way our agency works is under the Corporation for National and Community Service, we have these two significant programs that we fund, Senior Corps and AmeriCorps. We're not going to talk about Senior Corps today for the sole purpose of we have a lot of information to get through, but I would say one of the things that I think is most important for all supervisors of VISTA members is that you understand all of the programs of the Corporation for National and Community Service, because Senior Corps programs can potentially supplement your AmeriCorps VISTA program, and it might be a great complement to what you're already doing. So do a little research on the Senior Corps program. With the Corporation for National and Community Service, we have, like every federal agency, is an inspector general who is an independent branch of our agency. They function independently of the corporation, and they do oversight and monitoring and management to make sure that there's no fraud, waste, and abuse with the corporation's resources. We're going to go into what each of these key players here do on the screen. So the Inspector General will take a look specifically at what their role is. But here you can see the corporation functions underneath the executive staff of the corporation. We have the program staff for AmeriCorps. And within AmeriCorps, we have AmeriCorps VISTA. And you'll see that here down below the AmeriCorps logo. And VISTA is a department within the AmeriCorps program who then disseminates their funds primarily through what are called state offices. And then state offices go ahead and administer the funds at a local level to place VISTA members within organizations like NeighborWorks America, who then go ahead and fund individual VISTA member placements at sub-site organizations. So if you look here at the right side of the screen, NeighborWorks America is considered the sponsoring organization. Then you'll see underneath that two little purplish looking houses. Those would be you as sub-site supervisors. So some of the language that you'll need to know to manage your VISTA program are the terms that you see on the left-hand side of the screen. VISTA headquarters, state offices, this is Tina Dunphy and myself, sponsors, NeighborWorks America, supervisors, which is all of you who are on this call, and then your VISTA members. We're going to go into detail about all of these roles on the next few slides, starting off with the Inspector General. The Inspector General, again, for your reference, is solely responsible for making sure that there is no fraud, waste, and abuse within the federal agency that they are governing, if you will. And I don't like to use the word governing. It's probably the absolute wrong word, but we want you to know that they're really governing our resources. They're doing audits for compliance. They're making sure that they're making sure that the members are participating in programs properly. They're making sure that you as supervisors are managing your VISTA resource in an appropriate way. One of the things that I learned last week at a conference is that we do have investigators who will come out. The big joke during the presentation last week, although I didn't find it really that funny, was that the Inspector General's investigation wing, they're the folks who will parachute into your organization overnight when they learn of any compliance-related issues that might have resulted in fraud, waste, and abuse, and they will do investigations at your site to make sure that the resources are being used wisely. Now, the reason I go into so much detail about this is because every year the Inspector General makes a plan on what their specific focus is, and in 2017, the IG's plan is specifically related to the AmeriCorps VISTA program. So in this year, what the Inspector General will be looking at as it relates to the AmeriCorps VISTA program is they're going to be looking at programs across the country to make sure that the programs that we are funding are A, positioned to become sustainable, B, truly focused on the anti-poverty related issues, 3, they're taking a big look at the reason members leave their programs early. Debbie can attest to this. NeighborWorks America has had a slew of members leaving the program early for a variety of reasons, whether it's going back to school, for employment issues, poor performance, etc. But the bottom line is we need to be conscious and make sure that our members are going to be able to complete their service and be effective at the same time. And then the last point that our Inspector General is going to be looking at this year is VISTA members serving in schools to make sure that VISTA members are not participating in direct service activities if they are serving in an educational institution. Now, I show you this IG plan, and this is really important. For those of you who are brand new, you're probably looking at this list going, I don't even know what this means, why the Inspector General is looking at sustainability or the anti-poverty focus. We're going to get to that, so bear with me and be patient. I present this as my first point because for the existing supervisors who have been around for a while, we want you to know the importance of making sure that your programs are positioned for sustainability and are focused specifically on poverty-related issues. And also, this is a good framework for setting up the topic of recruitment, because we have learned in our office that the root cause of member turnover tends to be poor recruitment in the beginning of hosting a VISTA member. So like Debbie said at the beginning of this call, you're going to be getting a lot of information for those of you who are brand new over the next couple of months, and it's going to feel like you're moving in a time lapse that's not ending, but know that it's all for the good of the program and it's all going to help you be successful when you move forward. So bear with this startup phase. It's worth it in the end. The other key players of the corporation, we have VISTA headquarters. Within our VISTA headquarters office, I just want to give you an idea of what our headquarter office does. There's one department within our VISTA headquarter department, and it is our management department, and they manage policy and they translate all of the federal regulations so that they're understandable to people like me who don't really understand legalese all that well. And so this regulation and policy, as it comes out and becomes available, our management office identifies where we need additional resources and understanding. They create the additional resources for our understanding purposes and send that information out to the field, meaning my office, meaning our sponsors like WISE and NeighborWorks America, and then that eventually lands down with our sub-site supervisors. Two departments that you can hear from sometimes during the heavy recruitment period are our training unit and our VISTA member support unit. And the VISTA member support unit's acronym is VMSU. The training unit is specifically, their role is specifically to create training opportunities for VISTA members, both pre-service training and in-service training. So they create our training schedules for VISTA members who are going to a PSO in person, which none of your members are, but if for some reason some of your members end up needing to go to an in-person training, our training unit facilitates travel to those training, and they manage all of the logistics related to our VISTA members training that is delivered by our headquarter office. Our VISTA member support unit, they play a very important role in activating all of the VISTA members. They manage all of the VISTA member benefits, so they're going to be making sure your VISTA members are paid. They're going to make sure that your VISTA members' education awards are unlocked at the end of their service term. They're taking a look at all of the benefits across the board and making sure that they are available to your VISTA members. And they actually keep an official member file for all of your VISTA members. You may hear from our training unit when our VISTA members are participating in training. The VISTA members will have to take courses and we'll have to do some pre-work. If the VISTA members are not successful in getting all of their pre-work or getting their pre-trainings completed, the training unit may reach out to you as sub-site supervisors to help you guide your VISTA members to make sure that their training is completed. You may hear from the VISTA member support unit when your VISTA members attend their pre-service orientation blend. It's called PSO blend. That's what they'll participate in when they first become VISTA members. When the members participate in that blend, they're going to have to fill out paperwork, and you as supervisors are going to be responsible for getting that paperwork in through the proper channels so that it reaches the VISTA member support unit. If it doesn't reach the VISTA member support unit in a timely fashion, you will get emails from the VISTA member support unit letting you know that your members cannot be activated until that paperwork is completed. So this is what our VISTA headquarters office does. We then move on and we have the state office. The state office, that's where I come from. I'm a program officer here in the Ohio State Office. I provide technical assistance to grantees, and Tina Dunphy is your primary contact with the corporation here in the Ohio State Office. I am your secondary contact, but we provide technical assistance not only to you as AmeriCorps VISTA, as recipients of the AmeriCorps VISTA resource, but we also provide technical assistance to senior corps programs in our state. We're also what we would call the face of national service within our state. So we're looking at various programs. We do monitoring activities to make sure that programs are compliant. We want to find any areas of concern before ever it becomes an inspector general issue. And so we're going to monitor your program for success. We do that with Debbie Wise very closely. Her role with NeighborWorks America is also to monitor and make sure that all of you are expending the resources we're providing meaningfully and in the appropriate ways. When we talk about resources, we're really talking about your VISTA members. We in our office at the state office also will approve all of your VISTA placements and your VISTA assignment descriptions and service opportunities. Now, because all of you were just notified a week ago that you were receiving the VISTA resource, you likely don't even know what I'm talking about when I say VISTA assignment descriptions and service opportunities. And that's okay. You're going to learn a lot about that over the next several days as Debbie sends out follow-up emails. And we're also going to go through VISTA assignment descriptions and service opportunities in a future call when we want to instruct you on how you're going to enter this information into our online recruitment platform. We also assist in the design of successful VISTA projects. As Debbie mentioned, NeighborWorks America has been a VISTA project for several years, and the reason they've been a VISTA project for as long as they have is because they have a successful design and are implementing the project appropriately across the country. So somebody asks a question, and it's a great question. I see it in the chat. How do we compare at NeighborWorks to the rest of the country for early VISTA departures? And David, that's a great question, and I honestly can't answer that right now off the top of my head. I would just be making some assumptions, but that's some information that I can see if we can get some more details about that. I can tell you comparatively to Ohio alone, the NeighborWorks America departures have been significant this year comparatively to Ohio, and we don't know necessarily the reason why, but we're trying to get to the bottom of it to figure out what we can do better to support you as supervisors and to support your members at their site, which is part of our role in the state office. So that's a great question. We in the state office are always looking at that. In fact, we did some focus groups this past year to see the satisfaction rate of our VISTA members. And we learned that there's a lot of work that we can do cooperatively between our sites, our sponsors, and the corporation to make both the member experience and the supervisor experience more successful moving forward. But thank you for the question. So speaking of your state office, I've mentioned several times before, Tina Dunphy, she is the boss here in our office, and I am the VISTA program team lead, and so I do a lot of the training and primary communication for the VISTA program in the state of Ohio. NeighborWorks America has been a great organization to work with, and we in the Ohio State Office, although this project is a national project, we in our state office have been fortunate to be able to manage the NeighborWorks VISTA project for the entire country. And this is not an unusual structure, but there are very few national VISTA projects in the country, and NeighborWorks America, because they have been so successful, have been able to continue for a long period of time. They were placed in our portfolio in 2009, I would say, and maybe 2008, but I believe it was 2009, and they will likely stay in our portfolio for the long term. We then have sponsors. So I showed you the intermediary structure on the several slides ago. The sponsors are the organizations like NeighborWorks America who have a direct relationship with the Corporation for National and Community Service. So NeighborWorks America, and don't blush, Debbie, but for all of you who are on this call right now, NeighborWorks America, they're doing all of you a huge service. If NeighborWorks America did not have the VISTA project and were not VISTA sponsors and work directly with my office, it's unlikely that most of you on this call would have VISTA resources in your organization. The reason all of you have been able to get the VISTA resources because NeighborWorks saw this VISTA opportunity and said, you know what, this would be great for all of our organizations across the country, and we want to start brokering the relationship between the corporation and our member organizations. And so they did that by applying directly to our office. They pick up a huge responsibility. They do reporting for all of you who are sub-site supervisors. They do a lot of work as it relates to supporting the recruitment of your project, of your members at your project. They do a lot of work in telling your story to make sure that we understand the value of your project. They take care of a huge administrative burden for all of you. If NeighborWorks America did not do that. All of you would be responsible for applying for VISTA resources in each of your individual states. And a lot of states have requirements that organizations have to apply for 8 or more members, sometimes 3 or more members, and some of you only need 1 member. So that would prohibit you from being able to place members at your organization directly with the corporation. So I just wanted to highlight that because the next bit of information is less favorable as it relates to NeighborWorks America's responsibilities and how it might relate to you. Because they are managing this relationship between the corporation, they have to uphold the integrity of the program. So they're going to be monitoring and doing some work with all of you to make sure that your members are appropriately serving, that you're appropriately managing the resource, and then they're going to take that information and they're going to have that information to determine who can continue as AmeriCorps VISTA subsites from year to year. So that's why they're going to be talking to you and communicating with you as it relates to member attendance and your members' experience, because every time one of their subsites has a misstep, and it could be an accident, or it could be just didn't understand all the rules, that could essentially impact the overall integrity of the NeighborWorks America VISTA project, that has 70 members across the country. And so Debbie and her team are solely responsible for making sure that all of you are following the rules and regulations of the program. So I just wanted to, put that plug out there, let you know that they're doing a great service to you, and let you know that when sometimes you're feeling a pinch because they need something from you, it's likely because we are telling them that they need, that you need to make sure that you're following the rules and regulations of the program. So the next slide specifically speaks to NeighborWorks VISTA team. Debbie, do you want to introduce your NeighborWorks VISTA team?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Unfortunately, our VISTA leader, Sindra, is out sick today. Otherwise, she'd be on the call and give you a shout out. But for the most part, it's really the 2 of us. It's pretty much a 2-man team. So you will be dealing mostly with me. You will be getting several emails from me, and then we'll be hosting our own webinars and teleconferences along the way. And then you probably will hear at some point from Sindra Kofeld. She is a VISTA, but she's what's known as a VISTA leader. And she is also here to help support you and support the program. And she oftentimes will deal directly with our VISTA leaders if they need any support or guidance or have questions or need assistance of any kind. And then typically I work directly with the NWO staff and the VISTA supervisor. So we are always here, like I said, via phone or email. We oftentimes also attend the NTIs. So usually at some point, and I'll probably be sending this out soon, I'll send you all a heads up. We are both going to be in Minneapolis next week for the NeighborWorks Training Institute. So I will identify a time and a location. If you'd like, we can all meet up. You can meet me. You could ask me questions. So it'll be a good time for us to connect. I don't often get to see you face to face, so that would be a really great opportunity if you're going to be in town. And so you'll be hearing a lot from us. So get used to seeing my name pop up in your Outlook, for good or for bad.
Debbie and company are going to be your best friends for the next month and a half. So get ready for the ride. So thanks, Debbie, for that. So Debbie and Sindra are the folks that we primarily work with out of our office. And again, Tina Dunphy is your program officer, who unfortunately was unable to be on the call today. Excuse me. The next group of important individuals related to the VISTA structure are our subsites, which are all of you who are on this call today. So you're the folks that are housing the VISTA members at your site on behalf of the sponsor. You are probably one of the most critical pieces of a successful VISTA project, and I say that because the success of the VISTA member lies on you. and not to make that a heavy statement, but we need all of you to be prepared and ready for the VISTA members when they come on board, understand the roles and responsibilities of members, make sure that your project is in alignment with the project that NeighborWorks America has submitted to us. You're going to be providing the space and the supervision to support your VISTA members during their service. And you're going to learn more about what your roles and responsibilities are specifically when Debbie sends out your memorandum of agreement over the next several weeks. And that memorandum of agreement is going to explicitly state this is your responsibility as a site, this is our responsibility as the corporation, and this is NeighborWorks America's responsibility as the sponsor. So watch for that. That's going to be available to you in the coming weeks for a better understanding of what your roles and responsibilities are. As sub-site supervisors, what I really want you to understand is that you are responsible for managing the VISTA member day to day and make sure that they have the support necessary to do their day-to-day work at your site. You're also going to be providing supervision and functioning in some regard as a mentor to the VISTA member. So it's not just that you're going to be supervising the member. A lot of folks who come into the VISTA program, not all, but a lot of folks who are coming in are new professionals, and sometimes they need a mentor. I know when I first began as a VISTA member, I had a lot to learn as it relates to office operations and what's appropriate and inappropriate. And so that's where you can be a guide and help mentor the member for success. You're also going to be verifying the attendance of the members. Now, why does this get its own bullet point? Well, this gets its own bullet point because Debbie, this is one of the supports that she's providing to all of you, is verifying bi-weekly to my office that your members are on site and in fact serving. So we'll talk more about attendance later, but it gets its own special bullet point because we sometimes have issues with tracking attendance of VISTA members. And I mean that globally. That's across the board. Ohio projects included in that statement. So be mindful of some of the requirements as it relates to time tracking and attendance in the future. That will be coming out soon. The last key component of your VISTA member success are your VISTA members. They're going to be serving 365 days to support your organization and work on poverty alleviation in your community. They're going to be participating in this opportunity because they want to give back to their local communities. It's very important that you understand their role. They are going to be serving at your organization, but while they're serving at your organization, you should be doing your best to integrate them into the whole staff experience at your organization. Bring them to staff meetings, have them present to the board on their project, include them generally across the board in all operations of your agency. The other thing to note is that VISTA members, although they are governed by rules and regulations for VISTA overall, they should be following and abiding by your agency's policies as it relates to things such as how to take their leave time, what is appropriate attire, and etc. So every agency has their policies and procedures, and the members will follow those for the most part, unless a corporation rule overrides a rule in your policy manual. We could talk more about that a little later if I have time. We're going to now take a look at a couple of things that VISTA members are not. VISTA members are not, and this is very, very important. I'm not going to get onto my full soapbox, but a little bit here. VISTA members are not any of these items that you see on the screen. They're not interns. They're not employees. We don't like to call them volunteers. They're members of national service programs. They're not warm bodies. They're not outsiders. And first and foremost, they are not just a VISTA. We've gotten a lot of feedback. Again, this is a global statement. It's not specifically about NeighborWorks America, where VISTAs have said they're asked to do things at the organization that are inappropriate, and those asks are followed up with, well, you're just a VISTA. And so the way that I like to talk about this is, and I actually have called out people very specifically in trainings, but I'll say to, and I've said to an executive director, how would you feel if your staff came up to you and said, you're just the executive director, I can do what I want? It probably wouldn't feel good. And so we want to get away from our VISTA members being spoken about as just and we really want them to be a part of the integrated team at your organization. And that means including them across the board so that they can be successful. We're going to move on to, and again, I know I'm cruising through this information, and again, it's to get you through a lot of information in a quick amount of time. But we're going to jump in and talk about AmeriCorps VISTA and what the specifics are for the program and what the program really entails. But before I do that, I just want to do a really quick public service announcement for those of you who may have dialed in a little late or weren't on when we did the first introduction. We are taking attendance through chat, so if you'd go ahead and put your name and the organization into the chat feature, we'll be then looking back at that for the purposes of taking attendance. So thanks for those of you who have already put your name in. For those of you who still need to, please do so at your convenience. So we're going to dive into the AmeriCorps VISTA overview and talk about what the VISTA program is in general. The AmeriCorps VISTA program, our specific mission is to eliminate and alleviate poverty. We want to make sure that poverty does not exist in America. That is our goal with the VISTA project. The VISTA program is over 50 years old, and it has gone through a transformation like anything does over the years. What we're focused on as a program at this point is having our members work on program development, capacity building, and creating sustainable structures. People frequently ask me, well, what do you mean by sustainable? What is sustainability? And the best definition I can find is an environmental definition. And what they say in the environmental world is what it means to be sustainable is its ability to persist. And so with that being said, if you have a VISTA member working on a project at your organization, they should be focused on making sure that that project, whatever they're doing, can persist. And so what we want to be able to do is come back in 10 years and say, okay, VISTA member Sindra was working on a financial literacy curriculum and structure for this community. Does that program still exist? Or maybe nobody in the community anymore needs financial literacy courses. So we want to understand what sustainability looks like for your community, and that's number one. So we also want to know, what does it look like to get somebody out of poverty within your community? These are the things that you should be thinking of while you are creating these sustainable structures with your VISTA resource. So why do we do this? Why does VISTA do this? Well, during the War on Poverty, Lyndon Johnson charged us as a nation with helping people attain equal opportunities. And with the development of the War on Poverty came the development of the VISTA program and the Foster Grandparent Program, which is another program of the Corporation for National Community Service. Both of these programs were specifically targeted at working with low-income populations in some capacity. Again, with the VISTA program, we're looking to create programs or opportunities that persist, and maybe that persistence is an individual coming out of poverty and persisting out of poverty. So keep that in mind when you're working on your community development projects that your VISTA members are working on through NeighborWorks. With the AmeriCorps VISTA program, this is a very quick crash course on what it means to be a VISTA member. I'm going to tell you where you can find more resources and where you can get more details in just a moment. But when you have a VISTA member come on board to work on these poverty alleviation programs, they are committing to serving at your organization for a year period of time. They're serving in a full-time capacity, and what that means for us is a full-time capacity means that the members are going to be serving whatever your agency defines as full-time. So if your agency defines 35 hours as full-time with an hour lunch break every day, so that would be about 40 hours technically, that's what your VISTA members should be serving at your organization. We don't want to see anything below 35 hours a week. So if you're an organization that is not open for that full 40 hours a week, then you'll need to work with Debbie and company to figure out a way to best engage your members full-time throughout their year. They're going to be serving the hours that you are identifying for them. So some of your members might need to go to community meetings in evenings every Tuesday night. If that's the case, then it should be upfront with your VISTA members and say the expectation is you're here every Tuesday night for this meeting. But because you do that, you might offer them to take a few hours off every Friday because they're participating in this meeting every Tuesday night. If your organization has that flexibility, then you can extend that to your VISTA members. But while they're serving, they're going to be receiving 10 days of medical and 10 days of personal leave time. These days are going to be taken in accordance with your agency's policies. So make sure that your agency's policies are up to date and understandable, and your member knows how they can take their 10 days off per medical or personal time. Your members will also be getting, upon successful completion of their service term, an education award or cash stipend. They can receive child care for their during their service term. So if they have children under the age of 14, so 13 and under, they may receive a prorated child care allowance if that child care is necessary for the member to complete their service term. They'll also be receiving a subsistence allowance, and this can be a bit of a pain point for projects that have members across the country. Each of your members will likely be receiving a different subsistence allowance. The subsistence allowance is paid bi-weekly to the VISTA members through direct deposit. The subsistence allowance is based on 105% of poverty wages for a single individual in your community. So each community has a different subsistence allowance rate. For instance, in Ohio, across the board, the subsistence allowance rate is $994. Now, in a state like Massachusetts, they have about, I think it's 7 different subsistence allowance rates based on the county or the zip code in which the person lives. So Debbie has a list of all of the subsistence allowances for your members. While you are recruiting your members, you should be communicating with them what the subsistence allowance is. We have a lot of people who come to training on their first day or come to their PSO blend on their first day, and on that first day they still don't know what their allowance rate is going to be. So you'll need to know what that is and be communicating that with your members through the recruitment process. VISTA members do receive training and professional experience. If they're moving more than 50 miles for their service, they can receive relocation benefits. They do receive, the language is probably incorrect here. It's not necessarily a healthcare stipend, but they receive healthcare subsistence that can help with expenses related to their healthcare above and beyond their insurance. So all members are required to follow the Affordable Care Act laws. And then the members can opt into a healthcare, basically it's a subsidy, which will help members pay for things like co-pays or things like co-insurance. But it will not help pay for their actual insurance that they're purchasing through the healthcare exchange. So I just want to be clear about that. So these are the things that members will be receiving. Now, I'm not going into extreme detail on this. I am on slide 19 of 72, and I only have an hour and 10 minutes left. So with that being said, with this particular slide, to get more information on all of these specific details, the information can also be found on the VISTA campus. The VISTA campus is going to be a great resource for you as supervisors in the long term. It's vistacampus.gov. If you go to that website, you can actually take a terms and conditions class, which will walk you through all of the details that I just shared with you in more specifics for your purposes. I'm going to share this specific course you can take related to VISTA terms and conditions with Debbie so she can share that with you after the call. But know that you are welcome to go to the VISTA campus and learn more about all of these resources all these benefits that are available to your VISTA members. I also typed into the chat the website for the VISTA campus. It's vistacampus.gov. That's where you can access a lot of resources to help support you during your sponsorship of a VISTA member. A question that just popped up in chat is Debbie was asked if she could email the subsistence allowance rates out to all of the supervisors, and Debbie said yes, she will. That is one of the specific documents that she does send out during the recruitment phase. Again, because there's so much information, it can get lost in a slew of information. So make sure, like Debbie said, create a folder. You can place that document right in a folder, and you'll have it for the long term. So we're going to take a look at a couple more AmeriCorps VISTA overview features that you will need to know about. As VISTA subsites, and this would apply to NeighborWorks America as a sponsor as well, you are prohibited from displacing staff and or volunteers at your site. So if you have a staff member who is doing, I'm going to stick with the financial literacy example throughout this presentation probably. So if you have a staff member currently at your agency or have had a staff at your agency in the last ever working on financial literacy and developing financial literacy programming, you cannot have a VISTA member come into your organization to work on that particular activity, because that would be considered displacing staff. Even if that activity has and that staff position has been gone for a while, that would still be considered displacement of staff. There are specifics on displacement of staff in your our memorandum of agreement with NeighborWorks America, and then they also extend that to you through the memorandum of agreement. You cannot require members to participate in prayers, proselytizing, or lobbying during their service term. You cannot discriminate or harass members, and you cannot fire VISTA members. Now, if you're having difficulties with your VISTA member at their site, we're going to talk about termination in a future slide. But if you find yourself in a situation where a member is not working out, you cannot fire the VISTA member, but you can request that the member be removed from the site. You'll do that directly through NeighborWorks. You'll work with Debbie to try and fix the situation with the member first, but if it doesn't work, then you can go ahead and request the removal of your VISTA member. It's a pretty lengthy process, and we'll go into that in more detail a little later. But know that you cannot ask your VISTA member, you can ask them to leave, but you cannot fire them from the VISTA program. Also, you cannot assign any of your VISTA members direct service, meaning they cannot work one-on-one with clients during their service term. There are a few caveats to this, and that is, if your member is trying to learn a new program, or maybe they've developed a new curriculum and they need to learn what it's like to deliver the curriculum so that they can train volunteers later, they might have to educate themselves by delivering a program once, understand how it functions, then develop the volunteer training plan. That is okay. If there's an emergency circumstance, and when I say emergency circumstance, I don't mean a VISTA member can sit at the front desk and answer the phones all day because your receptionist called out sick. But if there's an emergency circumstance where somebody needs to step in a direct service capacity for 20 minutes, your member can certainly do so on a very, very limited basis. So keep that in mind. So we call these the 3 E's, and these 3 E's are the instances in which members might be able to participate in direct service during their service term. But they're very, very limited. When in doubt, work with NeighborWorks America to understand what is allowable and unallowable. Members during their service term are prohibited from, like I'd mentioned on the previous slide, you're prohibited from assigning people, proselytizing, or lobbying activities. As VISTA members, they cannot actively, by choice, participate in proselytizing, lobbying, or electoral activities during their service term. The electoral or political activities are part of the Hatch Act, which does govern VISTA members. However, during a member service term, for those of you who have been around for a while, maybe you were around and left and came back, and you're now supervising a member for the first time after 5 years, this is a little different information than you heard 5 years ago. But members can have part-time jobs during their service term as long as they do not interfere with the member service. So you're going to set service hours for your VISTA members. The VISTA members cannot have a job that would be within those hours that you have set for the members. Similarly, members cannot take classes that interfere with their service, but they can take classes outside of their service term. Both of these situations require approval, and you'll need to work with Debbie to get approved individuals who want to take classes outside of their service term and individuals who want to work a part-time job. Also, teleservice is prohibited in most circumstances. Debbie, do you have a specific instance in which you would allow teleservice with NeighborWorks?
Yeah, so a good example would be with our VISTA leader. We do have a teleservice agreement in place. If there's inclement weather and she is unable to navigate to the office, in that instance, she could work from home, and she is set up to work from home. Another situation that's actually specific to the DC area is our metro system is under repair, and they are doing safe track work. That work can make it very difficult to metro to certain areas in DC, depending on what track they're working on. So for, 1 day, a week, and that would be the maximum, she would be allowed to work from home. So there are certain special circumstances where we do allow that, but on any given regular average day, she's in the office.
Thank you. So for those of you who you're probably hearing me talk about teleservice is basically the same as telework. And in order for somebody to be able to teleserve, it's not just enough for you to say that it's okay. As supervisors, you need to get approval from Debbie, who needs to seek approval from our office. So teleservice needs to be approved directly by the corporation before it is allowable. Whereas classes and working outside of service needs to be approved by NeighborWorks America, and they will consult us for approval. However, they do have the authority to go ahead and approve individuals who want to participate in work outside of their service term and classes outside of their service term. So we went through very quickly the overview of AmeriCorps VISTA members. The next two slides, which again you can download through Skype, the next two slides specifically explain what it means to have outside employment, what it means to go to school, and what we mean by interfering with a VISTA member's service term. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let you read through these on your own time so that we can get through additional information. I do see a question in chat, and it has to do with not interfering with service. Can we let a VISTA flex their time to take a class as long as it is workable for completing their VISTA assignment? And that is a fantastic question, Sharon. And the answer is yes, you can, as long as it's within your agency's policies to allow that. So if your agency's policies state that if a staff member wants to take a class, and in order to take a class, they'll need to take a couple hours off on Tuesday and Thursday, but they'll make that time up on Friday, then that is perfectly fine, but it needs to be within your agency's policies. So that was the one question. I see somebody, so Isabel, if you keep getting kicked out and back on, I have your name, so you will not have to retype it, but you are certainly welcome to reintroduce yourself every time you pop in. But thank you for notifying me of that. So anyway, you can read through these couple of slides on your own time as it relates to interfering with service time, etc. We're now going to talk about recruiting for success. And I want to first highlight recruitment very briefly for you. And then we're going to try and do an exercise online. I told Debbie, I said, I've never done this online before. We'll see how it works. If it doesn't, we'll abandon ship and move on. But we're going to try something a little different today. So first of all, one of the things that we have learned here at the corporation is that with VISTA, VISTA members often don't understand that when they become a VISTA member, they're part of something so much larger than themselves, so much larger than your organization, and so much larger than your local community. There's only 6,000 members nationwide, and we want to start capitalizing on the limited nature of these positions and letting people understand why their service is so important and such a big deal. So there's 6,000 members nationwide, and when people choose to become VISTA members, they are essentially participating in the program likely for a professional experience and to give back to their local communities. Our office here in Ohio, we're always looking for ways to recognize members in a meaningful way so that we can show them that their participation in this program is valued by the community, by the state, and by the country. And so we work on various strategies. Like right now, we have thank you letters for all of the members who are serving in Ohio that were written by Senator Sherrod Brown in Ohio. We're going to be sending those out to all of our Ohio VISTA members. So things like that are ways that we can highlight the member service. So any way that you can work to highlight the member service is going to be very important to the member and to the success of your member. With that being said, recruitment and valuing your VISTA member really begins with recruitment. And that is, you want to bring in the right person to serve at your organization so that they can be successful in the long term. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the recruitment process and what VISTA member recruitment looks like. There are several steps to VISTA member recruitment that are important. The first is all of you are going to have to create what is called a VISTA assignment description. And it's likely that you do not have all of the details on creating a VISTA assignment description yet. You've probably created your VISTA assignment description in your VISTA application that you submitted to NeighborWorks America. It will likely need some work. But your VISTA assignment description is your entryway into the recruitment process for your VISTA members. It's where you're identifying all of the activities that your member will need to do during their service term. And then based on that, you'll be able to identify the skills that are necessary for your VISTA position. Once you identify what all those skills are, you'll develop your recruitment plan and develop an interviewing plan. Now, I want to capitalize on some of the expertise that we have here on the call. And so we're going to jump ahead several slides. What I want you to do is we're going to start on this activity. One of the things that I've learned is all of you who are on the call who have had members in the past likely have had a great member, and some of you have had not so great members. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment and I want you to type into chat, what are some of the qualities for those of you who have had excellent VISTA members? What are some of the qualities that your VISTA members have had that have made them so fantastic? Go ahead and take a minute and type those into chat. For those of you who are new, read through the chat as they're coming in. And don't be shy. Willingness to learn and try new things. Eager to learn, self-motivated, self-directed, self-starter, adaptive and resilient, flexible, eagerness, maturity, dependability, reliability, energetic. All right, idealistic, passion for community improvement, technology skills, good team player, can work independently, listens and asks questions, flexible. We're getting some great open-mindedness, initiative, responsible, passion for growth, great writer and presenter. All right, so we're going to flip, understanding of poverty, fantastic. Passionate to help reduce poverty, all perfect. So we're going to turn the tables right now, and I'm going to ask you the exact opposite. And I'm going to ask you, I just want to separate these out. I'm going to ask you, for those of you who have had really difficult members, tell me a little bit about what has made those VISTA members difficult to work with. Flaky, self-centered, negative attitude, immature, disengaged, bullheaded, personal problems, poor communicator, needed excessive supervision, lack of confidence, bad character, lack of accountability, doesn't follow through, misunderstanding what it means to be a VISTA, personal problems, tardiness, disorganized, not motivated, lack of communication or commitment to the site. All perfect. This is what, not perfect. This is not perfect. This is not what we want to see. Disrespectful. So these are all situations that people have had to deal with. Think he or she knows everything. Great. Self-centered. So these are all items that people specifically state or have had experience with. So for those of you who are new, take a look at this list and think about this list. Now what I want to do is I want to ask you a question, another question. For those of you who have had members resign at your site, can you tell us the reasons your members have left the program? Another opportunity, medical issues, got a great job offer, found an early job, another graduate school, relocation, end of service job offer, no affordable housing, wanted salaried employment. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of job offers. Great. All right, so what you guys have done is budgeting issues. Great. I had a hard time when I was a VISTA member figuring out how to budget. So these are all great responses. So one of the things that I have to say is it relates to members resigning. A lot of people say, and this is meant to just be a statement. When recruiting VISTA members, we know that to have a successful VISTA member, we need somebody who's passionate about being a VISTA and understands the role of being a VISTA. And so I understand people leave for various reasons. Medical reasons, we don't have much control over. Employment, we can say we don't have much control over, but the reality is VISTA members know what they're getting into at the beginning of their service term. And so people who leave early for another job opportunity likely weren't the right fit. I know people would challenge me on that, and I'd gladly agree that your reasoning on why the person was the right person is probably right. But one of the things that I've learned is, people who are truly committed to the VISTA experience are going to stick around for the long term. So anyway, I just wanted to acknowledge that. So what I want to do is I want to take a look at another question. So if we go back to the list of positive attributes for members, so what we saw, if you scroll up, we saw a lot of reasons people were great VISTA members included. They were great writers. They were willing to ask for help to gain understanding. They were flexible. I want you to type into chat, what are some of the things that you can do in a selection process that would help you identify whether a person was eager to learn, flexible, dependable, great writer, etc.? Require writing samples. Great. Sample of writing. Perfect. Restructure interview to include a personality or behavior assessment. Great, Jennifer. Thank you. Skills test. Perfect. Reference checking. Asking for past job experience related to attributes. Gauging enthusiasm during interview. Outreach pitch. So having them do a project, prepare an outreach pitch to present in the interview. Great. Talk with previous supervisor, behavioral interview questions. Perfect. Previous volunteer service. Test in work experience. Great. All of these are great. And I will say that one of the reasons I asking if they can commit to the term, letting them know they can't be replaced. Great. Giving them a little bit of an understanding of the impacts that this can have on the project. One of the reasons I have you do this particular exercise is I want to show you that there are so many ways for you to identify whether a person is right for you. You're not limited to just an interview. During the recruitment process, you can ask the member questions, or candidate, I should say. One of the things that I have to say, and you're going to learn about the recruitment systems and processes later on in a future call, but one of the things that I have to say is our system on the My AmeriCorps portal gives you 2 references that the candidate has identified in the when they create their application. What I'm going to say is one of the best things you can do for yourself is take any written reference that is given to you through an online format or through email, take it and just chuck it in the trash. It's not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to get you what you want. I would say the most valuable thing you can do during the recruitment process is talk to past references. That's going to give you an idea of how the person adapts to their new environments, number one. The second thing that I have to say is all of you who have said request a writing sample. Writing samples are fantastic. I had one supervisor come to me and say, you know, I requested a writing sample, I got it. The person came here and couldn't write a full sentence. So what they started doing is they do the writing sample on site during the interview. They say, write us a letter, a business letter for this particular purpose. The person sits down behind a computer and writes the business letter. They have a perfect writing sample right there and in front of them. So all of your ideas for identifying whether a person has the right skills or attributes they're great methods for managing the recruitment process. I see a couple of things added here in the chat. Well, one primary thing. Somebody writes that they discuss VISTA challenges, that they could discuss VISTA challenges, including budget challenges with the candidate. Perfect. One of the things that I've been telling people to try is there's a program online. It's a poverty simulation online. It's called Spent. I can tell you that it is a great resource for putting somebody in a difficult situation and having them figure out whether they can make it through a month on a small living allowance or salary, if you will. So try maybe encouraging your individuals to go through some kind of poverty simulation like that. Now I want to flip again. I want to flip this around, and I want you to think about all of the bad attributes that we have mentioned or the reasons people have left their service term. And we found scenarios in which people state that you had VISTA members who were self-centered, were disrespectful, didn't have motivation, were disorganized, etc. What can you do to screen out for that? Go ahead and type into the chat your ideas for screening out for the challenging situations. And Jana, yes, I'm going to pull that up right now while you guys are typing your responses, and I'll put it into chat. So go ahead. Topics or ways that you could screen out for the more challenging features of or less positive attributes. Having your VISTA members meet with candidates and financial coaches. Ask about why they left their previous positions. Great. Asking what people are trying to get out of their VISTA term of service. Yes. What are their long-term goals? Talking to past references about punctuality and getting along with coworkers. References. So all of these are great ideas. Asking them how they would respond if offered a really good job during their term. That's perfect. One question that was asked to me while I was being interviewed for my VISTA role was simply this, and I thought it was great for people who maybe cannot be motivated if they're not going to see an end result. It was a great question, and I honestly didn't know how to answer. I was asked, so tell me, how are you going to feel doing a year of work and never seeing the end result of your project? And I was like, what? That can't happen. No, I don't know how to deal with that. And I told them very clearly, I don't know how I deal with that. It would probably be hard. And so they coached me through that. So that's a way to get at whether somebody is committed to the project, even if they're not going to see the end result. Asking if the member has a support network in the new location. So all of these are great methods for identifying whether a person has some of the supports that are necessary or some of the attributes that are necessary for them to be successful. I would even say, going beyond that, I would say that it's worthwhile asking again behavioral questions during the interview, or even asking references in some cases. Asking the reference that the member asked you to call, and when you call that reference, saying to them, is there somebody else in the organization who can tell me about this individual? So that you can make sure that you're going even further down, so you're not just talking to the immediate reference, maybe talking to other references that your candidate didn't even mention. So those are all ideas that I wanted to throw out there and have you start thinking about. You're not limited to the traditional interview process for selecting candidates. Now, why is this so important? The reason this is also important is because the recruitment process is where you're going to start finding the right person for your position. So we want you to be thinking about this. You're going to be identifying what skills are necessary for your positions. You're going to be creating your VISTA assignment description. You're going to be identifying all of these important components of interviewing and selecting a candidate. And once you go through that interview process, if you don't have all of the pieces in place, you could very easily bring in the wrong person. Now, I see a lot of questions coming into chat. I'm not going to be able to manage all of those right now. Debbie, if you can read through them and pop out the really important ones, that would be helpful. I did see one question, though. Can we get all of these ideas? Can we get a copy of all the suggestions that we just talked about? I will transpose those and put them into a document, send them to Debbie so she can share those with all of you. So, Debbie, are there any questions that you saw that might need immediate response?
There's one from Isabel asking about if they can network with other supervisors in the program, and you can certainly network with other NeighborWorks supervisors. However, there probably aren't very many other NeighborWorks projects. They're going to be physically close to one another. So in a situation like that, you'd probably have to contact your state office to see if they could put you in touch with other VISTA projects. And I think, Sarah, you could probably speak more to that.
Yeah, so there are ways to get in touch with the local VISTA projects in your area. If you wanted to talk to some of the local supervisors and have some socializing with them, we can get you in contact with the state office that represents your individual state, who will have a better idea of all of the sites within your current location. You can also, VISTA Campus, I put a link in to the chat a while ago, so you'll have to dig deep for it. But on the VISTA Campus, there's a VISTA map. And the VISTA map will give you the opportunity to identify other supervisors in your area. And you can identify those supervisors, email with them, and figure out how to communicate with them, and maybe even share some recruitment practices with some of your local folks. So that's where I would start your state off. Well, I would start with the VISTA campus, then move on to the state office in your individual state, which Debbie and I can help you connect with. So there is that. Another thing that I just wanted to reference for the individual who asked for the poverty simulation, I now posted the link twice into the chat, so you can go ahead and access that link. Debbie, maybe we can add that to the notes for the follow-up to the call.
Oh, yep.
Okay, great. So as far as recruitment is concerned, as I had mentioned, we went through that activity right there just to show you that there are so many different methods for recruitment. Obviously, the first is you have to get yourself prepared. You're going to all have to create a VISTA assignment description, and a VISTA assignment description is something that, again, we're going to go over in more detail on a future call when I show you how to do the online recruitment functions. But the VISTA assignment description looks like what you see on the screen. You're going to be entering into the VISTA assignment description this first page. It's going to be a standard format that you're going to fill in. I'll go through instructions on the future in a future presentation on how to fill out this first screen. But on the second screen that we're showing you now, you're going to have to identify the goal of your VISTA project, all of the sub-objectives. So what's the big picture goal? Then what are the secondary steps that you're going to be looking for somebody to achieve to reach the higher goal? And then what are all of the member activities that relate to each objective? We're going to be looking for very specific details on your VISTA assignment description to make sure all of the member activities are defined, all of the objectives are clear, and the goals of the assignment are truly what you have expressed in your full application that you submitted to NeighborWorks America. Again, we're going to go into more detail about this in future slides, or in future presentations. What I want to do, though, is I want to move forward to talking about creating opportunity listings. Again, this is something we'll go through on a future future webinar. We'll talk specifically about how you create an opportunity listing. But we have an online resource that does national recruitment, which is where you can find a description, where all candidates can find a description of the positions in which they're applying for. So you'll be able to say, this is what our project is going to do. The candidate will be able to say, yes, I want to do this particular position, and apply for you right then and there. This opportunity listing should very closely align to your VISTA assignment description, so that when you bring in a candidate for selection, they're seeing the VISTA assignment description through the opportunity listings all the way through to when they come on site. There should be no variance in what their activities are through that whole recruitment process. Once you have a candidate selected for your position, Debbie's going to send you out all of the details on how you're going to go through the selection process, when all of this information is due, etc. So we may be a little ahead of the cart right now. But with that being said, once you have a candidate selected, you're going to want to make sure that you're engaging that candidate from the point at which they're selected for service till their first day on site, so that the member knows that they're valued and knows what their role and responsibilities are and where they need to show up on their first day of service. So be sure and mindful of keeping your candidate engaged from selection to start date. What we do here in our office is we host a pre-service conference call for all of your VISTA candidates. We want to make sure your VISTA candidates know what the state office is, know what's the intermediary organization, knows what all of your sites are. So we're going to talk to the member about what their role is, how they can connect with the state office, how they can best prepare for their service term, etc. And we do that as part of the recruitment process. Once your candidates are selected, we do this call just as one last check to make sure that the right person was identified for the VISTA position. This next slide specifically kind of is a little bit out of place, but I'm going to go through it anyway. As I had mentioned really early in the presentation, member recruitment is a big focus of our Inspector General. So that's number one. Number two is all VISTA members' retention begins with recruiting the correct member. So you'll want to make sure you're bringing in the correct member. But with the knowledge that the Inspector General is taking a hard look at member retention, I added this slide to the presentation because I wanted to illustrate one of the biggest reasons, or all of the biggest reasons that staff leave an organization. I would say that it's pretty much similar. VISTA members, why they are going to stay at an organization is probably similar to why staff member is going to stay at your organization. To improve or make sure your VISTA members are going to stay at your organization through their entire term of service, a couple of things to note. Research shows, and I'm not a researcher, I found this through a lot of different resources and some journals that I looked at regarding human resources and employee retention. But as far as making sure members are or employees stay at an organization, I want to point out a few things. The 5 things that keep people to stay: effective communication, recognizing, encouraging, and motivating, creating a friendly environment, encouraging innovative ideas, or good working conditions. I want to point out, a lot of people say our VISTA member left to find a new job, or because they were going to be making more money, etc. The one thing I want to point out here is the 5 top reasons people stay at an organization. Of these, none of them have to do with money. And I only point that out because I think we can do some things as a team, as a national service team, to make sure our members are satisfied and will be able to complete their service term effectively if we employ some of these ideas when we have our members on the ground. So I'm just throwing that out there. Anyway, so once we've recruited a member, again, crash course here. I know I didn't get through all of the specific details, but once you have a member recruited, the next portion of getting your member onboarded and at your site is VISTA member training. So we're going to take a look very quickly at the training process for your VISTA members. But before we do that, I want to point out some of the biggest complaints of our VISTA members who are serving in Ohio. So this does not include a survey of NeighborWorks America VISTA members, but I would tend to think that they might be similar. Some of the biggest complaints of VISTA members are the staff at the organization are not aware of the VISTA members' goals. So like I mentioned earlier, invite your VISTA members to board meetings and introduce them to the entire staff. That's going to allow all the staff to understand what the VISTA member is doing. The other staff at the sub-sites degrade the members with language, like what I had mentioned in the beginning. See what a VISTA member is not slide. So that's number 2. Other agency staff ask the members to participate in assignments not related to their project goals. So members need to stick with their VISTA assignment descriptions. Or members do not have the opportunity to see the impact on the community in just 1 year. So all of these are reasons that members tend to be very dissatisfied. And we want you to be aware of that because we want you to be able to mitigate for some of these situations once a member comes to your site. So what we ask you to do when VISTA members come on board and before they come on board is do a little training of your sites. Let them know at staff meetings who the VISTA members are and what their roles are. We then want you to introduce the VISTA member. Once they're on site, have them come to staff meetings, assign them tasks that might have them working minimally with various departments so that the departments can work with the VISTA member and understand what the VISTA member's role is. Invite the VISTA member to community meetings. Also empower your VISTA member to come to and approach people within your agency so that the VISTA member knows that they are part of the overall agency. What I'm going to be doing over this summer, starting in June, is I'm going to be hosting bi-monthly supervisor calls specifically for you. and for whatever staff you want to bring along to these calls. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be covering topics that are pertinent to the time of the year in the VISTA members' service at your organization. So in June, the topic I'm going to cover for subsite supervisors, and this is totally optional, is we're going to be talking specifically about the best practices for bringing a member on board so that they can fit in with your organization. And we're going to provide some supervision tips. So plan on attending this and bringing some of the staff at your agency along for that webinar. As far as VISTA members training, so what we just went over is site training for all of your VISTA members at your site. We're going to look at VISTA member training now. VISTA members, before they become VISTA members, attend two online self-directed webinars, and I don't have those on a slide right here, but they're going to take a Terms, Conditions, and Benefits course online, and they're also going to take a Civil Rights and Responsibilities course online, all before they come into your organization on the first day. Once the members come to your organization on day one, which is going to be August, oh shoot, I just closed that email. Debbie, what's the date? August 12th?
Yeah, August 28th.
Sorry. Thank you. Erase August 12th from your minds, everybody. All of your members are going to be starting on August 28th. And on that date, that first day of service, they will have taken two online courses. They're going to come to your site ready to begin their service, at which point you're going to provide an on-site orientation, which I'll talk about in a future slide. But the members are also going to participate in their first PSO Blend webinar. And this webinar will take place. The members will be sworn into service. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, the VISTA members will be participating in what's called a PSO Blend. And this will be an opportunity for them to blend their service with their pre-service training, if you will, which is why it's called a blend. So members will be expected to participate in webinars throughout the blend process. There are going to be check-in webinars, there's going to be an oath of service webinar, there will be required coursework and homework assignments. And during that time, the members are going to be learning about poverty, they're going to be learning about how to navigate their VISTA assignment description, and they're going to be told what should be included in their on-site orientation. So I want you to know that those first 3 weeks, although the members are almost solely occupied with you, there will be probably about 4 to 5 hours of work each week where they'll need to be participating in webinar or online assignments for their PSO Blend required training. Once the members are on site, just one note. All VISTA candidates for NeighborWorks America are going to be attending PSO Blend this summer starting August 28th. With that being said, there are some PSO Blend exceptions. So if you find that you have a VISTA candidate who's going to work out perfectly for you but doesn't have technological competence, and they don't need it because they're doing some other activities, maybe you have non-English speaking members or members with disabilities, and it would be most appropriate for them to go to pre-service orientation in person. Let Debbie know, and she will work on making an exception for your VISTA member to go to an in-person pre-service orientation. Just wanted to throw that in here for your purposes and for your knowledge. But once the member begins service at your site with their pre-service orientation blend, or after they attend an in-person PSO, the members will have a training directly from NeighborWorks America. And this, well, it's more of an orientation. And it will be with the VISTA leader, and it will be a welcome to the NeighborWorks America VISTA project, and will likely include instructions on how to communicate with NeighborWorks America and how to get the resources that are needed to effectively complete their service term. In addition to that webinar, there will be provided by you to your members directly an on-site orientation. And this is going to be provided by you over the first few weeks of your member's service term, and it should include basically what you orient your staff on. You should go through details on the agency, what the agency policies are, etc. One of the things we ask that you do at your on-site orientation is make sure all of your VISTA members sign and accept your agency policies, because as I had mentioned before, your members are required to follow your agency policies in addition to the VISTA member policies. And we want to see that you have actually shown them the policies in the unlikely event that you have to request the removal of your VISTA member for a reason related to your agency policies. So don't miss that step. Make sure you're having your members accept your agency policies. We have some resources for creating the best on-site orientation you can imagine on our VISTA campus. VistaCampus.gov is where you can go, and these links are included in the downloadable presentation that you can download right off of Skype. We have the on-site orientation and training planning worksheet, which is a fantastic worksheet. This particular worksheet was developed by VISTA leaders. The worksheet the leaders worked with VISTA members across the country to identify all of the things that the members needed to know, needed to hear, see, feel, and experience to be successful at their site. So it walks you through all of the items that you should be covering when you're doing an on-site orientation. I'd encourage you to go to that link here that's on the screen. And that training will certainly walk you through the expectations of an on-site orientation plan. I see a question in the chat. Does pre-service orientation include sexual harassment training? And to answer that question, that is covered in our civil rights and inclusiveness training. That is actually a self-led webinar that members will take prior to becoming VISTA members. So it is touched upon, but it's not in huge detail. So if that's something that you want to make sure your members are having, I would certainly include that in your on-site orientation. And excuse me, and thank you for bearing with my losing of my voice, as it seems to be trending right now. What I'm also going to be doing to support member training is I'm going to be providing members with a quarterly VISTA member conference call. And it'll be a webinar. It'll be the purpose will be to talk about a hot topic related to VISTA, and then also beyond that, just to give the members the opportunity to connect with the state office. Still in the planning phase, we have our first dates set up. I don't know what they are off the top of my head, but we'll share those with Debbie. These are optional calls. Members do not have to participate in them. They are not required. So feel free to, if your member says, oh, well, I have this call with the state office, but you really need them at a meeting, that meeting comes first. I just wanted to throw that out there. But those will be available in the coming months for your VISTA members. We're now going to go through reporting. And actually, for the purposes of time, I'm going to skip over the reporting piece because I know more information is going to be coming from Debbie specifically about reporting. I think my regulation slides are more important. The bottom line, as far as reporting is concerned, is NeighborWorks America does the primary reporting for all of your sites. This is another thank you, NeighborWorks America. And they're going to be asking you to send in information so that they can appropriately report out on all of the projects that your VISTA members are working on at your site. So we're going to skip over these slides. I'll let you read through them, and I'll let you get a better understanding of the reporting requirements as Debbie sends out details in the near future. We're going to skip right through and forward to regulations. And again, crash course, we're going to breeze through all of this information, but I want to give you a couple of specifics. First of all, the VISTA program is an equal employment opportunity program. So an equal opportunity service, if you will, not service, equal opportunity program. The only things that disqualify somebody from service are individuals have been convicted of murder, they cannot serve. If they appear on the Department of Justice Sex Offender Registry, or their criminal history states that they are sex offenders who maybe didn't have to register, or if they're on parole. If they're on parole, there is a likelihood that they might be able to serve, but that process for getting approved is much deeper than um, I just lost my thought in the middle of the sentence. So if a member is on parole, they may be able to serve, but the process for approving them is much deeper than just my office. I have to get approval from our headquarter office and often our general counsel to allow somebody to serve who is on parole. So if you have somebody who has any type of criminal history and is on parole, note that the process for approving them for service is much grander than just my office approving them. Individuals are qualified for service if they have smaller charges such as DUIs, even assault charges or drug charges. However, if your organization prohibits somebody from service, so your organization prohibits somebody from working at your agency for any type of offense, then you can prohibit a VISTA member from serving at your agency. You will get a criminal history in the first application, when a person submits their application to you. We run background checks, but they often don't come back. We run FBI checks until a couple of, probably about a month after the member begins their service. So if somebody needs a check to work at your site, you'll need to conduct a check on your own. So you'll want to follow your agency's criminal history processes on your own to make sure that VISTA members are eligible to serve if your agency prohibits members from service. So a couple of questions I see in chat. I will explain the download process in just a couple of minutes once I get through the last of these slides. As far as the member immigrant status for VISTA members. So yes, thank you for bringing up that question. The eligibility process for service is VISTA members must be permanent legal residents of the United States to serve within your organization. Dreamers are eligible to serve. It's a much lengthier process to get them into service, and it's getting a little stricter on their ability to serve. But as long as somebody has permanent residence in the United States, permanent legal residence in the United States, it is possible for them to serve. I see another question here. Debbie's answering that. Thank you, Debbie. I will move on from that question then. So we're going to take a look at, there's a lot of information about criminal history. We're going to take a look very closely at VISTA member termination. I'll let you read about the criminal history process. With VISTA member termination, if you have a VISTA member who cannot perform the duties at your site, is not following your agency's policies, you have the ability to request the removal of the VISTA member from your service. Here's the key. If you are having any challenges with your VISTA member, the first time you have any challenges with your VISTA member, document the challenge. Document what you did to deal with the challenge. Document any communication you have had with the VISTA member. We are going to be asking anytime somebody requests the removal of a VISTA member for all of the documentation that you have related to that VISTA member's request for removal. If you want somebody to not serve at your organization, I know this is very hard to see here, but with the request for removal, you're going to send a letter to NeighborWorks America and explain to them why you do not want this person to serve at your organization any longer. And depending on their circumstance for why you're requesting the removal, which are listed on this chart, the most common reasons are listed on this chart. Out of leave time, the member is AWOL, the member was not performing their duties properly, maybe they violated the agency policy. We give you a list of the items that need to be completed and submitted here, because we will need that to determine whether we're going to terminate the member from VISTA service or if we're going to just remove them from the site. Sharon, thank you for your tip. She says document, document, document from the start, because you will need it, as if you will need it. As if you will need it. Yes. Thank you. That is an important factor. We also see a question: is there a way for a VISTA member serving with us to simultaneously move into a paid position with us prior to the end of their VISTA term? And the answer is no. As a matter of fact, that is considered a pretty significant violation. If we see that happen, we're less likely to approve VISTA members at your site in the future, because that indicates to us that you have the ability to, you may have had the ability to have a staff in that role. Now, what I will say is if you have a paid position at the end of the member's term of service, please hire them or save the position for them once they finish their term of service. So we're going to now talk very briefly, I know I keep saying very briefly, about special VISTA initiatives, and I'm not going to go into details about this. We're going to specifically take a look at Mayor and County Recognition Day for National Service. The Mayor and County Day of National Service happens the first Tuesday of every April. And we are looking for individuals across Ohio typically and across the country, to VISTA members, to engage their mayors and county officials in some type of event, or maybe it's a proclamation signing to recognize national service within their local communities. So the bottom line is these days of service may sound like, when Debbie emails you about them, a lot of work for a little return, but the days of service are really the opportunity for us to show our communities and our Congress representatives in Congress and the Senate on the value of national service. So as much as you can participate in National Days of Service, that would be great. So with all of that said, I literally don't know how I got through all of that information. I know I skipped a lot of information, but what I want you to understand is the top takeaways from today should include that the mission of VISTA is poverty alleviation, recruitment is essential, your responsibility, you need to be training your sites so that they understand what their roles are at their sites. You'll need to be giving your members opportunities to grow, make sure you're following the rules and regulations of the program, and participate in National Days of Service if possible. So before I move into questions and answers and show you how to download the presentation, I'm going to hand it over to Debbie with any words of wisdom at this point.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. So there are just a few things that I'd like to cover as we wrap up. I would like everybody to note that the next webinar will be taking place this Thursday, May 18th, starting at 1 p.m. That's Eastern Daylight Time, so 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Sarah's going to join us again, and she's going to talk about recruiting in the My AmeriCorps portal. You know it as the eGrants portal. Some of you don't know it at all because you're brand new. But if you are brand new, you definitely want to be on this webinar. For those of you that are old hat and you've done this before, you don't need to be on it unless you'd like a refresher. But if you are new to the program, you definitely want to be on the webinar this Thursday, May 18th, 1 p.m. It'll probably be maybe another hour and a half or so, would you say, Sarah?
Probably.
Talking about how, create the VAD, put the VAD in eGrants, create your service opportunity description, get that in eGrants. And you want to get all these pieces into the eGrants system by May 31st. So that gives you 2.5 weeks. But don't get nervous, because here's the good news. All of you have giant chunks of this already done, because we asked for this information ahead of time in your application. So you had to give us information back in January about what you would include in your VISTA assignment description and what you would include in your service opportunity. And we even asked you a little bit about what your recruitment practice was going to be. So you've already thought through a lot of this. Most likely you will be making changes to what you submitted, some minor changes back in January. And we'll be tweaking that and make sure that everything you put in there are appropriate activities in terms of it being capacity building and not direct service. But it should not be too laborious. And the reason we want you to get that in by the 31st is to keep you on track so you could all hire strong candidates. And the sooner you get this information up in the system, the sooner you'll start receiving applications and you could start the recruiting and the interviewing practice. So that's the next webinar. The other thing I want to reiterate is that I will be sending out an email to everybody letting you know when and where you can meet with me next week at the Minneapolis NTI. Sometimes it's just easier to have an in-person conversation, so I want to make myself available so we can chat and you can ask me any questions next week as well. I will be sending out some information very shortly on how all of our new folks go about creating an account on eGrants. This is the very first step you need to do pretty much before anything else. And I'll be sending out some detailed instructions. eGrants might seem like it's intuitive, but it's not always. So please follow the instructions exactly. One thing to keep in mind is that you will be asked to put the EIN number in your account. I'll be giving you the NeighborWorks number, EIN. You do not use your agency's EIN number. You're going to be creating an account, an individual account under your name, under the NeighborWorks America umbrella account. So I just wanted to mention that up front. The other big chunk of information I'll be sending out, and this applies to the folks that have not attended the supervisor orientation, I'll be sending out some more information, more details about that training. That's the training that's going to be taking place June 27th to the 30th in Columbus, Ohio. And that's your big chance to meet me and Sarah again, if you haven't already met me. So we will both be there. This is for new supervisors. We want everybody to come to this training who has not had any experience supervising VISTAs before. So more information will be coming out about that. Just be sure to mark your calendars. And then the other chunk, and I told you, don't worry, these will all be in very separate emails. They'll be headlined and you'll know exactly what you're getting into. So I'm not going to do one giant email. You'll probably get 4 or 5, but like I said, file them away. But I will be sending out information on recruiting. And you'll want to keep diversity in mind when you begin recruiting. I'll be sending out more information on the subsistence allowance so everyone will know how much your VISTA can expect to receive when they start serving. And then also some information on effective recruitment practices and some good interviewing questions that you can build in if you like them. So all that's going to be coming over the course of the next 2 weeks. And then the other thing we'll do is we'll see if we can get the transcripts from today's chat, because I know a few of you were interested in some of the suggestions and ideas we were throwing out there. So I will get that out to you as well as the PowerPoint and the recording for today's session. I think I covered everything. All right, Sarah, I will hand it back to you.
Okay. Thanks, Debbie. So first of all, for those of you who are trying to download the webinar, apparently it is not available for download if you're out of our network. This is a new thing for me, so meaning I haven't seen this problem before. So we'll have Debbie send out the PowerPoint as soon as possible after the call for your access and reference. So I apologize for that. So before we go ahead and conclude this call, for those of you who may be on the phone but were not able to put your name and organization in chat, I'm going to ask you to email me at my email address, which is sbrady, B-R-A-D-Y, @cns.gov. And in the subject line, go ahead and place poverty in the subject line, and then your name and organization in the body of the email. Again, that's for those of you who are on the call, but we're unable to view or type into chat. Again, it's sbrady@cns.gov. So what I'd like to do is I'm first going to stop the recording, and then I'm going to move into a question and answer period. We have 4 more minutes for those of you who want to ask questions verbally. So give me one moment while I turn off the recording, and then